All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us on this snowy day. We're so excited to have you here and have these great panelists who are going to share their careers with you. I just wanted to thank you all for joining us today. We have nearly 800 students from 17 schools across the state with us today. And we're so excited to share some resources and experiences with you that can help you as you start thinking about your own future careers. My name is Anna. I'm with the VSAC GEAR UP program. GEAR UP is a federally funded program that serves 37 schools throughout Vermont and over 250,000 students across the United States. I know we have a number of GEAR UP schools with us today, as well as a number of our talent search schools. And through both of these programs, a VSAC outreach counselor can help you with future planning, career exploration, employability skills, college and job training program applications, and much more. If you're interested in participating, you can talk to your school counselor for more information and to find out if you're eligible to apply. I have just a few housekeeping items to share, and then we will go ahead and get started. First, unless you're a presenter or a panelist, you should all be muted, but you can ask your teachers to type any questions that you have throughout the presentation in the chat, and we'll be watching those and either answering them in the chat or trying to get to as many as we can at the end of our panel today. And if you need technical support, you can type it in the chat or you can direct message me or my colleague, Adriana Eldred, who's on here. As Kathi mentioned, we recommend setting your Zoom to speaker view. It just will make it easier for you all to see the panelists as they're speaking. We are recording today, but only the people who are speaking will show up. So feel free to leave your videos on. Don't worry, you won't show up in the recording. And we will share the recording with you all and post it to our webpage following today's event. And with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pass it back to Kathi to get us started on all the fun stuff. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Anna. And actually, a huge thank you to Anna for pulling off an event with over 800 students joining us today. And I know you have a great team at VSAC making that happen. I right now am looking at the Zoom screen in gallery view, and I am seeing so many students. So this is fantastic. Hi, everyone. I see lots of waving. So it is so great to see you all. I hope you enjoyed the first snowfall of the year. We have a fantastic lineup for you. Before we introduce our panel of speakers, we have a special guest. Matt Barowitz from the Vermont Department of Labor is going to introduce you to Vermont's most promising jobs. This is a neat resource that you all have access to online. We'll put a link to it in the chat. Lauren, if you can maybe help with that. And this is something that your schools could actually order if you want to hold a copy of it in your hands and mark it up. But Matt is really the brains behind all of the data in this brochure. And he also has a pretty fascinating career that he can tell you a little bit about when he introduces himself. So each person that you listen to today, you'll get to learn a little bit about them and what they did, and maybe they'll even reflect back on what it was like when they were in middle school. And I can just give you a moment to hear about myself. I'm Kathi Terami. I work for a nonprofit organization that does career development for students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. So we work with elementary, middle, and high school. And when I was in middle school, when I was your age, I wanted to be a chef. I really loved cooking and I loved going to restaurants and eating. So that was a career pursuit that I explored in middle school, but then ended up doing other things and am now working in a nonprofit organization, which I love. So Matt, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, your career path, and then tell us what is in this resource for students before we introduce the panel.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Kathi. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to do a screen share here. So I'm going to put something up here, and that's just going to facilitate kind of my presentation. But thank you all for being here and being a part of this. You know, Vermont Career Connect is such a beautiful opportunity. Vermont, we're a small state, we can accomplish a lot. And one of the messages I hope you take away from here is that even though we're a small state, we have tremendous opportunities for jobs and employment. You know, companies you wouldn't even know were here. world-class leaders in things like fashion or finance or design or computer gaming systems. There is something going on in the mountains of Vermont all over the place. And, you know, sometimes being from Vermont, I grew up in Essex, you don't know all that's going on until you start asking questions. And so that's going to be a lot of what we talk about today, asking questions. So as Kathi said, I am Matt Berwitz. I am an economist. That is my job. And I could not be happier to be an economist. I love being an economist. It is super fun. Though I'm a state employee, I'm 100% federally funded by the US Department of Labor. So we have federal funding, and I have to give shouts out to my federal partners because they give me money to be here today. They also give us money to have our website, which is vtlmi.info. And it looks like this. It looks like a busy website with a lot of data on it. But I quickly wanted to highlight for this group, teachers particularly, if you're looking for some easy homework or fun homework for people in the room, upper left-hand corner, career exploration. Click on that. Type in some keywords like nurse or carpenter, and you can pull up videos and descriptions of those jobs. Also, if you want to see an electronic copy of the brochure that Kathi mentioned that we worked on, just got released this October. It is meant to be a conversation starter. We want you thinking about the opportunities in Vermont. We want you thinking about how best to move forward, because that's really what it's all about, giving you information. You have a lot of choices ahead. So I also want to thank you for being here, like being curious about jobs, being curious about education and asking questions, whether that's today or in the future. I know people on this panel will be welcome to receive questions from you down the road. Do not hesitate to reach out to me. I am in Montpelier. I love talking to people about jobs. And you know, it's going to be holiday season, people spending a lot of times with family coming up. And I remember what it's like to be younger when all these adults are asking you all these questions. And one easy way to engage in a conversation, but kind of turn the conversation around, is ask them questions. Ask them, what was your first job? How did you get it? What was your favorite job? What was your least favorite job? And boy, people will have a lot of stories to tell about their least favorite job or their favorite job, but really listen to the why, because you can learn not only a lot about a job, but you also can learn about yourself. When you hear someone say why they liked something or why they didn't like something, you'd be like, oh, I have the exact opposite reaction of what they had. So I really encourage you to ask questions. What was your first job? How did you get it? Or what was your favorite job? But let's talk economics. I want to talk about economics. That's what I like to do. Economics, by definition, is the study of scarcity. Scarcity means it is limited, meaning it is not unlimited, it is not infinite, right? So the way I talk about this with people is I say, complete this sentence for me. I could never have enough what? And I know, I wish I was in a room with you right now. We could be yelling out answers. Having done this before, I know people will be yelling out right now. I could never have enough sleep. I could never have enough pizza. I could never have enough time with my friends. And all of this actually is economics. This is making decisions about what you value, what you, how you make decisions, and what you want in your life and what you don't want in your life. So me as an economist, I bring back this slide because I want to highlight my job is to produce, explain, and release economic data. So basically, we provide information. We create information on the Vermont economy, whether it's how much does a lawyer make, or how many teachers are there in the state of Vermont, or how many people have jobs. We're giving people information. I never want to tell someone what to do. I want to give you information to make, so you can make a decision, right? You wouldn't want me telling you what you're going to be when you grow up. Oh, you're going to be a carpenter, you're going to be a plumber, you're going to be a software designer. No, no, no. You know your dislikes, you know your passions, things you're interested in, not me. I'm here to give you information. We want to empower you to make the best decision for yourself. So I never want to tell people what to do. I want to give them information so they can make the best decision for themselves. So, but economist, what's that? I didn't even know what one of those was, right? How did I get started? I was a cashier in a grocery store. All through high school, I worked as this is not me, but that could be me, right? Working at the grocery store. And you know what? I learned a lot. Could I have worked in a restaurant? Yeah. Did I choose to? No. Am I sure, at the time, do I know why I didn't work in a restaurant? I don't know, but it just wasn't a fit. But cashier worked for me. Gave me a job. I learned some great skills. In college, I was a mail sorter. I worked in a mailroom. And these jobs may not seem like they have anything in common, but they do. They taught me to show up on time. They taught me to work well with others. They taught me to follow instructions. And what's interesting about both of these is they both involve numbers. There's a lot of numbers being a cashier, whether it's prices or a fruit code, which is how fruit is priced, or zip codes. So I learned all the zip codes in the state of Vermont. So I want to give shouts out to any of our friends up north in Newport, 05855, all the way to down south. If anyone's in Brattleboro, 05301. You know, I really enjoy working with numbers, and for me, that made a lot of sense. So did I know where I was going in high school, college? No. No, I did not. Growing up in Vermont, I didn't know the opportunities out there. The simple answer, no. Did I know where I was going? No. Did I know what an economist was? No. Not until I was in my 20s did I even know there was a job called economist, right? So you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to acquire skills. And you might not even think of them as skills, but showing up on time, working well with others, following instructions, this is what work is all about. In my job, we've interviewed over 3,000 Vermont employers. And you know what they told us they need from employees? They said, you can get someone who can show up on time, work well with others, and follow instructions. We will train for the rest. And so on those days when you're at school and you're feeling like this is a waste of your time, just remember, this is a great opportunity to practice these three things: showing up on time, working well with others, and following instructions, because that is really a key to being successful, not only in school, but in work, but also in life. And so, and we all need practice on these things, right? No one's born an expert on how to follow instructions. Sometimes you just like, it's hard, right? But you practice, right? And this is what school is about, learning these things and how they relate. So I'm gonna try and get into giving you some instructions now where you have to choose an option, A or B. Simple, right? Because that's what life is. It's a game of options. It's like, would you rather do the dishes or make dinner? Right? And if we had time, we could all be yelling out answers. I hope you're able to continue this conversation either in your classroom or with your friends. You know, would you rather do the dishes or make dinner? Simple option, A or B. That is what life is, a bunch of would you rathers, right? And that's the way we set up this brochure that Kathi mentioned at the top of the hour, where we break it out. We break occupations out. There's over 600 occupations in the Vermont economy. We're highlighting only a small number of them. And just because they're not in the brochure doesn't mean they're not amazing opportunities. But for us, we had to, you know, start somewhere. So here, it's breaking it down into questions. For these two, would you rather a job where you learn, analyze, and solve problems? Or would you rather a job where you work with people and use your creativity? And you'll notice these color combinations here, the orange and yellow, they're going to relate to people that are on the panel here today to talk about their jobs. What that means in real terms is like, I don't know, how about this? Would you rather be a nurse or a teacher? Right? You have teachers in the classroom right now that they chose to be a teacher over being a nurse. That was an option to all of us, right? We could have been, I could have been a nurse, but I would not have been a great nurse. So I moved on, right? Another example from this, would you rather be a software developer or a photographer? There's no right or wrong answer here. There's only something that matches you, your likes, your dislikes, your passions, your aptitudes, how you want to make a difference in the world. There's two other sections of here where it's, would you rather work with your hands to build or fix things? Or would you rather organize detailed information? That boils down into, would you rather be a carpenter or a bookkeeper? Do you want to build a bookshelf or actually run the numbers in the books? And neither is a good answer or a bad answer for everybody. It's what matters to you. And this one, I even learn, every time I work with occupations, I even learn something about myself. On this list, comparing the two, I was like, would I rather be a plumber or a lawyer? And I think to many on the panel that know me, I chose plumber. And anyone who knows me knows I am not good with tools, but I just would not want to be a lawyer. For me, it just wouldn't work. And there's no right or wrong, as I said, these are just options. And so I want you to be exploring it. Try on, you know, a hat of like, what would it be like to be a plumber? What would it be like to be a lawyer? What would it be like to be a chef, like Kathi was talking about? So many options. But again, thank you so much for letting me kick off this wonderful event. Thank you for the organizers. Thank you all for participating and the panelists for being here today. So thank you so much.
Whew, thank you, Matt. Students, if you can give Matt a little round of applause. That was a lot of information in a short amount of time. And I don't know about you, but I can honestly say I don't know anyone else who likes numbers as much as Matt does. And I love the way he can turn economics into something interesting. Kind of like Matt, I didn't really know a whole lot about that field until I took my first economics class in college. I didn't particularly enjoy it. And Matt is the first person who really helped me see economics in a really valuable, relatable way that I can relate to it in my life. So I hope he was able to do that with each of you a little bit this morning. So thank you, Matt, and for sharing about your time with fruit codes and zip codes. That is awesome. So we are now going to take a little bit of that information Matt just shared with us about different categories of occupations and meet 4 people who live and work in Vermont, and each of them represents a different category. Matt flashed up on the screen for you the inside of this brochure. The 4 different categories have different colors. So the people that we'll introduce to you next, you will see that in their backgrounds, they have a stripe of a different color because they represent a different category of occupations. So as we meet these people, just be reflecting on that. These are 4 occupations of 600 that Matt mentioned. There are all sorts of opportunities out there, but you'll get to hear just a little bit right now from these 4 people. So before we begin those introductions, I just want to mention that students, if you have any questions or comments about what you just heard from Matt, you can relay that to a teacher or an adult in your room, and they could type that question into the chat. Matt is happy to hang on for the rest of the time with us this morning and can answer some of those questions in the chat. And the same will go for the panelists that you meet. If you hear something that you want to know a little more about, you could go ahead and ask that question in the chat, and those people can answer them. If for some reason we can't get to all the questions in the chat, we will collect them, get the answers for you, and email them out to teachers to share with students after this morning. So either way, if you have a question, pop it in the chat, and we will work on either responding to that right away or later. Okay, so panelists, the moment we've been waiting for. I would love to start by asking you each to introduce yourself, short introductions, maybe a couple of minutes each, to tell us about your path from middle school to what you're doing now. And then after we do introductions, we'll talk a little more about what you're doing now to help students relate to that. So Kerri, if you are up for going first, you can start with your introduction, and then we'll go around to all 4 of you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kathi, and good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. I might actually rival Matt for his love of math and numbers, so I'm glad to follow him. I'm Kerri Gandin. I am a senior investment operations manager at Dartmouth College. And, and technically that's not in Vermont, but we do employ a lot of Vermonters. So, so happy to kind of represent Dartmouth. My title is a bit of a mouthful, but what it really means is I do a lot of math, similar to Matt. And when typically people who have gone to Dartmouth College, decide to gift the school money or donate money later in their life and their career, my team and I get to manage that cash so that we can support a lot of different programs for students at Dartmouth College. I absolutely did not think that this is what I would be doing when I was in middle school. In fact, when I was sitting where you are, I was convinced that I would become a veterinarian because I loved animals. And I still do. I have a dog named Jed, who is an absolute love. However, when I started at Merrimack College after high school, which is a small college just north of Boston, my interest started to shift, and I decided to major in business just to cast a wide net and really start to learn what I was most passionate about and or good at. And I thought that would likely open up broad opportunities. I always love telling this story about having lunch with my father when I was a freshman in college. And at that time, I really did not have, a path forward about a career. And my dad gave me the advice that I should really aim to graduate college with a defined skill set. And what he meant by that was learn something that you now know how to do that others do not. And so when you go out in the world, you can really add value at various organizations. And I really, really took that advice to heart. Around the same time, I had taken my first accounting course and said, hey, I really like this, and I'm actually kind of good at it. So I ended up going down that path, and I did a concentration in accounting when I was at school, which really means that I took more accounting courses than other courses. And what I learned during that time, which was kind of neat, was that, every business on earth requires an accountant. So, otherwise known as a bookkeeper. So when you think about walking into a retail store or a coffee shop, any number of organizations, they all need a bookkeeper or an accountant. So talk about job security. I felt like I was really going to graduate with the ability to work in any industry that I wanted. So it really was casting a broad net. After college, I went and did some additional schooling in what's known as a master's program. And that allowed me to take my knowledge of accounting to a deeper level. And at that time, I actually started my first job in Boston. It was at Ernst & Young, a company named Ernst & Young, and they are a public accounting firm. And, at that time, I was just like a sponge. I just tried to soak up all of this knowledge of those people around me and really started building kind of a solid foundation. And it was where I first had a window into the investing world. So I ended up leaving Ernst & Young and taking another job about investing to really learn those skill sets. And then this job at Dartmouth, which was my kind of third formal job, because I certainly had a number of jobs, during high school and right after high school during college. I worked in a restaurant, I worked in a retail store, I babysat. So as Matt said, those jobs really did serve a purpose too, and really, it allowed me to learn a lot before I got into kind of the corporate work environment. So, as I said before Dartmouth, I was at these other two jobs. And then when this position at Dartmouth became available, it really was a combination of the accounting skill set and the investment skill set that I had learned. While also being able to serve an incredible mission-oriented organization, which became really important to me at that stage of my career. And I'm happy to touch on that later. So, now I've been here with Dartmouth almost 9 years. I work with an incredible team doing really challenging and fun work, and we're able to support kind of all of the initiatives for students at the college. And on a daily basis, that feels really good. So yeah, thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks so much, Kerri. And I love how you followed Matt's love of numbers with your own. Now, students, this section here that Matt mentioned, that's bright green, that's the stripe that was on Kerri's background. It says, are you organized and detail-oriented, and do you like to work with lots of information? How many of you think you might be interested in jobs like that? Jobs with numbers, math, lots of information. You can raise your hands. I see some of them going up there. So you just heard about 2 occupations that people here in the room have where that's the category that they fit within. And just to give a little bit of information on bookkeeping and accounting, there's a projected 5,320 openings over the next 10 years in Vermont in that field. So just something good to know. If you like numbers, there's lots of opportunities out there for you. Okay, so let's move on to our next panelist with an introduction. David, how about if you unmute and introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Couture, and currently I am working as an intensive needs special educator over at Mount Mansfield Union High School in Jericho. I just want to say that I'm really grateful for this virtual space here between 800 middle schoolers, so you guys aren't sneezing and blowing any boogers on me at all. And just knowing that you got a lot of great teachers there in the room with you, and hopefully you're keeping some space in your germs to yourself too around this time of year. I also worked at Main Street Middle School for 6 years prior to this job. And it's been really strengthening the path that I chose. Didn't know that I was going to be here. In middle school, I really liked kind of using my hands and building things, and was always taking opportunities to jump into projects. After high school, I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I knew my father worked in business, and I thought that that was something that I could see myself doing. So I pursued a business degree at Plymouth State College, where I started there for my first 2 years, and then I checked back in with myself, and I said, you know what, I'm 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 finding success here. I'm taking my business management courses, macroeconomics, and it's insightful, but it wasn't really kind of speaking to me. I didn't see myself doing it. So I kind of switched gears and I changed schools. And then I found myself at St. Anselm College in Goffstown, New Hampshire. And I switched my major to political science. I started studying people and society. And that was exciting to me. I realized that I loved working with people, and I liked the fascination of what makes the local sectors work, and what makes schools work, and what are the relationship bonds between people and businesses. And so I graduated with a degree in political science, and then I started to volunteer at the local state government level for senators, but I needed money. So then I started to substitute teach. And just like some of our previous panelists and a lot of people around the world, you need to pursue opportunities, and every opportunity that came to me, I took it. So I repoed cars, I moved furniture, I worked for grounds crew companies, I painted, I worked at state parks. I did any opportunity that came my way just to kind of keep things going. But as I substitute taught, I found so much joy working with students that I decided I was going to get a second degree in that. So I pursued a post-bachelor teaching certificate to get licensed in the field of teaching. And then I moved to Vermont in 2015 and started working in Winooski, and then later in Montpelier. And I think one thing that's really important about where I am right now in life is that I've continued to learn. So I've continued to take opportunities to take classes and continue to pursue other degrees and keep the growth mindset, so that I'm staying current and keeping up with new things that are always happening. So I think that that's an important thing to think about, is that there's not really like an end or a final destination, right? We want to keep pursuing opportunities. And I am really happy to be here and hear from some of the other panelists. So I'm going to pass the mic. Thanks so much.
Thank you, David. I'm seeing a flurry of activity in the chat. So teachers, if you posted a question there, be sure to check to see if the answers are there, and you could read it out to your students in the classroom. So K through 12 teachers is an highlighted occupation in this yellowish orange section. There's two sections that kind of have similar colors. One's a reddish orange and one's a yellowish orange. So in the chat, you'll see some references to orange. It's actually this lighter yellowish orange section, and that's the stripe, the color stripe that David had. And for teachers, we have 7,850 projected job openings in Vermont in the next 10 years. So wow, if this is a profession that speaks to you, something you think you might be interested in, again, a lot of opportunities for you in the future. So something to consider. So thank you so much, David, for sharing that. Okay, so next up, we'll go to our third panelist. Martin, it's your turn.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. My current job right now is I am a craft manager at PC Construction. We're a large commercial company that builds probably some of the buildings you are in. We build a lot of schools, universities, hospitals. By my career path, I never thought I would land here today and speaking with you. As a young boy in middle school, what I liked the most was building things, Lego blocks. I had a miniature train set that took over half my parents' basement, and I just like fixing things, not always successful at it. But older I got, when I was in high school, what I realized is that I really want to work outside and create things, build things. So when I finished high school, I decided to go to a vocational school, a trade school in my region, and it was a bricklaying school. One thing I forgot to say, I was living in Canada, Quebec, and I only spoke French back then. So I went to that bricklaying school and I worked in the small residential, building houses and things like that. And not long after that, when I got married, we decided to move to the United States. So I had to learn English. This is where I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention to my second language teacher, which was English. And so I learned to speak it, just by with social, just with talking with people, and eventually I was able to not master it yet, but be able to communicate with people. So, and shortly after, I started becoming a leader in my industry. I liked it so much. I was a problem solver. I really put my nose everywhere, and that's what made my escalation. And I became foreman on large projects. And so just that's about it. So now I'm with PC Construction. After I did 34 years in masonry, I was offered this opportunity to work in managing people. They thought I had a good skills to communicate with people in the field. And my skill that I learned over the years by managing people led me here. Oh, I thought I was going to lay brick for the rest of my life, but here I am today. So I'll pass on the mic.
Thank you so much, Martin. So Martin mentioned liking to build things, and that's actually this blue section here says, do you like working with your hands or with machines to make, fix, or build things? There's lots of occupations in that category. There's a few featured here in this brochure that have the most openings, and carpenters have 4,460 projected openings in the next 10 years. How many of you think you might be interested in a field that makes, fixes, or builds things? This could be things like automotive mechanics, diesel technicians, electricians, plumbers. Matt mentioned plumbing, not a career he pursued, but one he'd rather be than another career. So raise your hand if you think that making, fixing, or building things, working with your hands, as an occupation category you might be interested in. I'm seeing some hands going up. So something to think about. And I forgot to ask you, after David spoke about that section, that yellowish section of, do you like to work with people and use your creativity? How many of you are interested in that field? That's where things like teachers would be, graphic designers, school counselors, photographers. So really different careers can be in the same category together. So raise your hand if that's a field, working with people and using creativity, thinking about where you might fit. You might not know, you're in middle school, you have a lot of time ahead of you to explore different things. Now's the time to find out what your interests are and what different opportunities might relate to those interests. Okay, so for our fourth panelist and our fourth category of occupations, we have Summer. Welcome, Summer.
Hi guys, thanks for having me. My name's Summer. I'm a registered nurse over at Central Vermont Medical Center. I work up on the med-surg floor as both a floor nurse and a charge nurse now. I started back in 2020 and I graduated from the University of Vermont with my bachelor's in nursing, straight out of the pandemic actually. So my first job was right at the start of 2020. Growing up, I was always super interested in math and sciences, and I always really thrived in those subjects. So I think that's kind of what sparked nursing. I always kind of knew I wanted to be a nurse, deep down in my heart, even when I was really little. So I kind of just kept that in the back of my brain. I think I did have a person who inspired me a lot. She was both my school nurse growing up in elementary, middle school, and high school, and my neighbor. So I just really looked up to her as a person, and I wanted to be that kind of person for other people. So when I went into high school, I kind of had this thought like, what if I don't want to be a nurse? What if it's more, I'm just interested in anatomy, science, that kind of field in general. So I did a few internships with like epidemiology. I did a lab internship, and kind of through those steps, I figured out, I really like connecting with people and caring for people directly. So that's how I kind of started pursuing nursing. So I'm a first generation college student. So I went to the University of Vermont. And yeah, I work currently with a lot of my colleagues doing like advocacy work and changing policies at the hospital. I think that's one thing that many people don't realize, is that you can work to make change in the hospital, not just, thinking of what you see nursing on the television is just caring for people. There's a lot of advocacy work involved as well. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Summer. So Summer represents the first category that's listed in the brochure here. That's that dark orangish reddish one. Do you like to observe, learn, analyze, and solve problems? That's where nurses and other medical professions are, like physical therapists, nurse practitioners, lab technologists, but also things like software developers. So different than nursing, but still in this category because they share some skills and some traits. So for registered nurses, we have 4,460 projected openings. How many of you students think you might be interested in occupations that are in this category of observing, learning, analyzing, solving problems? So this would include medical field, but also other things like computers and software. Raise your hands if you think this might be a category. And I'm squinting because the gallery view I'm looking at here, you're all so tiny, but I'm seeing lots of hands go up. So great. So this is an occupational category that's of interest to many of you. Now, let me just say, there is so much happening in the chat. So students who aren't in front of the computer, you can't see that. Teachers, again, a reminder, if you put a question into the chat that students in your classroom wanted to know the answer to, please share that answer with them. I am, before we shift gears to our next question for the panelists, I am going to say just a couple of questions and answers out loud, because we're also recording this event for some schools and students to watch after. There's at least one that, because of weather, couldn't join. So some will be watching it after, but they can't see the chat. So I'm just going to read a couple of out loud here. Some of the first questions that came in were about Matt's least favorite job. Of course, you mentioned that. And Matt did go ahead and answer that. So he said, great question. My least favorite job was teaching English. Oh my, it was so hard. As an example, I was asked by a student, why is the word sheep both singular and plural? I quickly realized that I was better suited working with numbers. So I also saw questions in there about what happens if you train for or start a job that you find out isn't a good fit for you. So that's kind of an example. That is just as valuable as exploring and finding a job path that does suit you. Just as important is finding out if something doesn't suit you, because then you can go on a different path, and that's okay. When we're young, we change our minds a lot, but guess what? When we're older, we keep changing our minds, and that's okay. Some people end up staying in the same profession and some people don't. There were some questions in here about skills. So I am going to shift the next panel question to asking about skills. Matt mentioned some really basic skills like showing up on time, following instructions. And, if someone can do those things, an employer can train the rest. I also heard Martin mention communication skills. In an occupation of carpentry, it's in building things, it's really interesting to think, oh yeah, communication could be important in that field. So Martin, you already mentioned that, but I'm going to start with you and ask all of the panelists to just, if you can reflect for a moment, share with the students about what skills you're using right now and maybe how you got those skills. So if you could just share an example, something about skills that you're using now. Martin, I know you mentioned communications. You can either tell us more about that or something different. We'll start with you and then go around the panel.
Yes, well, communication is actually, it helps growing in a company. It helps you, I think, achieving some higher level jobs, for managing, because managing people is mostly about communication. There's also the skills they acquired prior to that. So I think theater would be a good thing that I did in school. And when the teacher asked us to be in front of other people and doing a play, you're shy, but what you're doing at that point is learning how to communicate in front of a lot of people, which through your career, you might end up having to talk to several people like I am today. The other thing is math. I think math and construction is a necessity. I don't think it would be the very high level math, but actually it helped me out. And sometime I had to go talk to the engineer to explain to me how to figure out a slope and things like that. Phys ed's another good one. Working in the construction industry, you need to be in good health. You need to climb scaffolding. We walk a lot. We work in different type of weather, so having a good health is great. And obviously, second language, as I mentioned earlier, is a good thing to pay attention to. And reading and writing, I constantly into documents. And when I was in masonry, I didn't think I needed to know all these things. Well, till I got promoted, then you need to be able to understand the specification and on the job and reading the drawings and the specification, what they are. They actually engineers and architects that actually asking you and telling you how to construct something. So reading and understanding is very important. I want to say every single aspect in middle school that I did actually helped me throughout my career.
Thanks, Martin. Teachers, did you hear that? Students, did you hear that? Every aspect of middle school important in the current career that Martin has. So that's so important to know, because I know when I was in middle school, I didn't necessarily think that would turn out to be the case. So thanks for sharing that, Martin. So Summer, can you reflect on some of the skills that you're using?
Sure. So I'll just allude to the obvious ones. Math, I use a lot of math during my day, mostly just for med calculations or calculating drip rates and that kind of thing. The other shout out, obviously, would be science, review of body systems, diseases, how a lot of chemistry as well, how certain drugs affect the body and how they're metabolized. But one thing I think that surprised me a lot was the amount of reading and writing that's involved in nursing. So there's a decent element in that. I read a lot of charts during the day, especially as charge nurse. And a lot of the reading that I do is skimming and trying to find the most pertinent parts of information and prioritizing that. And I do a lot of writing, mostly just writing notes for summarizing your day, summarizing like how the patient is doing and what interventions that you did during the day to help get the patient better. So, yeah.
Great. Thanks so much, Summer. David, how about you? You're up next.
I didn't learn this in middle school. It took years and later into high school and college. Patience. I think something that my job requires is a reminding myself that I can't control other people. I can influence, I can persuade, I can support, I can motivate, but you are all in control of your own selves, your own destiny. You couldn't control whether or not you were going to have a snow day today. I bet a lot of you wish you had a snow day, but you can see I'm wearing a headset right now because I'm in school, I'm in a classroom. So I have this on so that I can focus on you guys, and you can't hear other students and staff in the room with me, but I'm sure a lot of you right now are probably wishing that you had the day home for snow play but what's important to recognize is that you're there at school and you have this day that you don't have at the end of the year, hopefully. But I didn't learn a lot of those virtues and those pieces at your age right now. That was a developmental thing that happened for me later in life. And it wasn't later until, I was paying for my own schooling, and then I was really dedicating myself and taking my time to really go to the library and spend those late nights writing term papers and working and just really committing myself to what I wanted to do. And I think that, I'm amazed these days to see that there are students that are your age that do recognize that at a younger point in their lives. And the sooner you do recognize that, the more that you're going to really capitalize, and you're going to start to be able to get earlier work opportunities and really kind of push yourself ahead of your peers. And that's going to really help in interviews and down to the road to college applications. So it's just a little bit of patience and work ethic, and those are skills right now that are really important in my field.
Great, thanks, David. Not all skills are obvious of where you might be learning or practicing and picking up those things. Patience is one of those. It's kind of like a trait, something you develop over time, which David mentioned, that it might not be something you have strong right away, but you can build that over time. So Kerri, let's go to you for skills in your job.
Yeah, I want to build a little bit off of what Martin mentioned with communication skills, because I think this is just such an important one. I think the ability to learn how to communicate both in written form, whether that's over email or in a letter or in a paper or orally. So being able to publicly speak, like in this type of environment or in a meeting, or just one-on-one conversations, is incredibly important. And so, of course, technology is a wonderful thing. That's how we're connected with all of you here today. And during the pandemic, it allowed us to learn, it allowed us to continue to work, and those are wonderful, wonderful things. However, I feel strongly that it doesn't replace in-person connection and interaction. And so I think, especially in today's, I think I was muted, but now I'm back. I think especially in today's generation, it's really important to develop those skill sets of being able to connect with people one-on-one and in a group setting, because no matter what, that is going to be part of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then additionally, I would just add that that computer skills really do come into play in a lot of these different careers. So whether it be, accounting and finance, or whether it be construction or nursing, there typically is an element of computer skills that come into play. And so learning how to type, learning how to facilitate emails, or even going another step, there are through Microsoft, they offer different skill sets like in Excel and PowerPoint. And these are ways of making presentations or doing data analysis on your computer. And typically most colleges offer those types of programs, even in high school now. They expose you to those types of skill sets. So I think really learning how to navigate a computer and being able to both communicate and do some work on a computer is incredibly important in today's day.
Great, thank you, Kerri. So you heard about a range of skills. Now, students, I have a question for you. How many of you think you already have skills that would be valuable in a job? Raise your hand. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of hands go up, but could not all. So what I'm going to say is all of you can raise your hands. You all have skills. In middle school, you have skills that you have already developed that can be helpful to you in occupations. If you want to share some of those skills out loud in your classroom, teachers, you could write them into the chat to give us some examples. But I'm thinking of things like even what Matt said about following instructions. You're doing that every day on assignments and homework and tests. And if you're writing essays and other things like that, you're developing skills of following instructions. And Matt was telling you how important that was in the workplace. You've heard communications come up a lot. You're all communicating in classes, you're writing, you're speaking, you're communicating with friends and family, and social media and texting, things like that. Those are all skills. You're getting your message across from you to another person. So really be thinking about yourself, what you're good at, what skills you already have, how you're learning those skills, and how you can practice them. And if there's something you want to get better at, a skill you want to build, look for opportunities to do that. Earlier, I heard about volunteering. Volunteering can be a great way. If you're not quite yet ready for your first job, you could volunteer somewhere and build some skills that way. But those first jobs, things in retail, like a cashier or working in a restaurant, things like that, those can help you build some of those early, really important foundational skills that can help you in all jobs. So I'm going to ask panelists one last question before we kind of wrap up the panel piece. And then for students that have a little bit more time to stay with us, we can do some more Q&A after that, where we can share your questions and answer them. And we can also do a little bit of reflection and thinking about the future, what's next. So panelists, for my last question, I am curious if you can share with students one thing. When I meet with students around the state in person, one thing I hear a lot is their interest in two things: making a difference. So somehow making a difference in their community, in their world, in their life, and using creativity. I'm seeing that come up a lot in the chat. So if you could pick one or both of those and share a quick example with us of how you make a difference in your job or how you use creativity in your job, I would love to hear that. So this time we'll start with David.
Thanks, Kathi. Great question. And I really think that every day when I have impact with my families and with the students that I'm working with, that is lasting impact. So for me, sometimes I kind of feel like this is really the best part of my job, is that I've really kind of dedicated myself to help serve the needs of those around me. And it is very fulfilling, but it also can be a lot of taking out of my bucket, right? So I'm giving a lot of myself, my time, and so that can really kind of be drawing a lot from me. So it's important to make sure that I'm doing other things to help take care of myself, right? I'm making time to spend with my family. I'm making time to do activities that I love. I love the outdoors, but I also really recognize that the job that I chose is an indoor kind of job, and it really kind of keeps me in the building and at a desk. And so a couple of years ago, I kind of took a step back and said, I really kind of like to be outside doing things too, and I'm curious about other opportunities. So I started to volunteer as a firefighter as well, and I got to do some additional training. And I didn't get to leave my profession, so I got to continue doing what I was loving, and I got to kind of add another piece onto what I needed in order to just find interest and find passions and be involved with the community. So I think that that's a friendly just reminder that no matter what you end up pursuing or moving towards from middle school and in through high school or beyond, that there's always opportunities around you to kind of keep growing and to keep looking for things. And the communication piece between families that I work with is really helpful, and it really kind of binds into a great community relationship. So students come in all the time and they're excited because they know we've provided a safe, happy, and learning environment here that they feel comfortable with. So that's really what the goal is, and there's always opportunities to improve that.
Great, David. I love the way you took the question about making a difference and have that reminder about if you empty your bucket, you've got to fill it up and find things that you like and are getting out of it too. Thank you so much. Martin, how about you next?
Making a difference. Well, when I was in masonry, obviously all the buildings that I did, whether it was somebody's house that want to live in, or some commercial buildings, schools, a lot of hospital. We did that last section at UVM. I like to think that we made a difference to give that room to all these people. For those that haven't seen it, it's that nice big round one behind the hospital. So we did all the masonry on that. In my new job now, it's more, I deal with our personnel or workers out in the field. I think I make a great difference when there's conflicts. Get involved, try to make it easier on them. Sometimes it could be as easy as transferring a person to another project where they're more comfortable. Also, we try to identify people talent, and people are motivated. So I usually try to find these people, and we started an apprenticeship program that with ABC, an agency in the help of the state of Vermont, and we're going to send some new employees that recently started with us, and we're going to send them to a trade school. And I think I made a difference in finding those people and giving these people that probably didn't even have an idea that they had the potential, and I gave them a chance to actually gain more experience. So yeah, so I think that's how I make a difference.
Hey, thanks, Martin. No shortage of responses for your field. I love that. Okay, Kerri, you're next. Making a difference.
Yeah, I love this question because it's one of the reasons I decided to take my current job at Dartmouth College. And for those, unfamiliar with the college, it is, a world-class, world-renowned institution, and it's right in our backyard. And so we are serving students, from all countries, all over the world. A lot of students who are the first in their family to attend college, and we are giving them kind of a world-class education to go out and change the world. So really giving them that foundation. And so even though what I do is really, focused on numbers and math on a daily basis, and I do a lot of computer work, it's really nice to be able to take a step back at the end of my workday and say, I supported this broader mission. I allowed for these students to have these opportunities through some of the work that I'm doing. And so that is really important to me. It's really important to everyone on my team and across the broader college. And so just as an example, I referenced earlier that alumni who attended the college, as they kind of advance in their career and perhaps make some money, they say, or they feel strongly they want to give back to the college. And so sometimes they'll give a gift of cash back to the college. And so my team will manage that money in what's called an endowment. And we try to make that money grow to better support other initiatives at the school. And so just this year, Dartmouth announced that for any student that got into the institution on their own merit, who comes from a family that makes under $125,000 a year, they would attend the school for free. So completely tuition free. And so what I'm doing on a daily basis is supporting that program, is allowing for these students who are very well deserving to attend this institution and get this education. And so that's an example of, on a daily basis, that might not always be super front of mind, but it's so wonderful to be able to kind of take a step back and look at the bigger picture and say, I am really serving these students and really serving this broader population. And it really feels like what I'm doing is making a difference. And that's really important.
Great. Thank you so much, Kerri. Good reminder that a lot of occupations can be behind the scenes. And sometimes you can find occupations that might blend some of your interests. Like if you have an interest in education, but don't necessarily want to be a teacher or a college professor, you can maybe work in an educational institution using numbers because you love numbers. Same thing with animals. You could love animals, but not really want to be a vet. But you could do an occupation that might be behind the scenes that helps animals. So lots of occupations like that, where you can work in an industry doing an occupation that's not necessarily directly related to that. Okay, Summer.
Hi, really good question, by the way. And I think it's super pertinent to nursing. nursing, I think a lot of people want, when they think healthcare, they want to go and be a doctor. And I think, you know, that's great. But when you're a nurse, you're the one who's at the bedside. You're the one who has eyes on the patient constantly. And your job is to assess, to monitor, and look for changes for the doctor so you can initiate any additional treatments. I know that because of this, you're just improving the patient's care, and you're critical. You have a critical role in that patient's outcome. So I think, you know, as far as like making an impact, you have a very important role in determining if that patient does better or does worse by the care you provide. I think another way that nurses make a difference is that mostly through your own education, nurses act as a very big educator, especially for providing med education for patients when they receive news about a new disease they have or about a new medication that they have. Those are all very important things that affect a patient, and nurses are have a vital role in providing education there. And I talked about advocacy earlier, but one way that nurses provide contribute to the community is through their own education. Like in a way, one big thing with nursing is you can get another degree, you can get your master's, you can get your DNP and keep pursuing higher education. And through that, you contribute through like trickle down education. You educate your peers, you can be a mentor for others around you, and overall like improve patient outcomes and better educate the staff around you.
Hey, thanks, Summer. That's so great. Maybe that might be really obvious ways nurses make a difference, but also some that are less obvious that you might only know if you work in that field, especially that education aspect. So thank you for sharing that. So we are wrapping up our panel now. I just want to give an enormous thank you to the four of you, because I know you all have busy jobs and busy days. So to be able to hop on this Zoom with us and talk to over 800 students and share your passion for your work, we really appreciate it. So students, if you could give a round of applause for David, Martin, Summer, and Kerri for spending their morning with us. We love that you did that. I also want to give a shout out to the wonderful adults who are helping in the chat, both the teachers who are fielding student questions and putting them in there. The chat has just been on fire. I haven't been able to keep up with all of it, but you have like personal career coaches in the chat. I see Matt and Lauren responding to so many of the questions with really great information. We don't have time to read them all out loud. So I think what we'll do is we will pull together a summary of the questions that were asked and the answers, and we'll get answers to the ones that weren't answered in the chat, and we'll get them out automatically to all the schools participating today, so you can share those with students in case your question is in there. And then anyone who's watching this recording after the live event, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and reach out to VSAC because I think we could get that summary of questions and answers out to you too if you wanted to see what those were, because a lot of these questions you might have yourselves. So thank you everyone for being so active in the chat, both in asking questions and providing really interesting answers. So students, I have another question for you. If you can either talk to someone next to you or share this with your teacher so we can pop it into the chat. Is there anything today that surprised you? Did you hear something that was like new to you, you weren't expecting? Maybe you asked a question in the chat and the answer is a little different than what you thought it might be. Is there anything that surprised you? Any surprises this morning? You can share that with someone sitting next to you. You can talk about it, or if you can, share it with a teacher. And if adults, you could pop some of those into the chat. We'd love to see what those surprises are, or just new things you learned today that you didn't know when you walked into the room to join us for the Zoom. So share those in the chat. We have one here that you can get a job at 14. I saw lots of questions about ages coming up. What age can you work? What age can you earn money? What is the best age to start a job? So yes, I didn't get to see what all of those answers were, but there are very specific child labor laws related to different ages of working. You can only do certain things from age 14 to 16, and then you can do more things from ages 16 to 18, and then you can do almost anything after 18, possibly needing some licenses or certifications or education and training for certain occupations. So it's good to know that when you're applying for your first jobs. We have here a student here was very surprised that some lawyers help decide laws and a bunch of that stuff. Yes, that can be also legislators, people who work in government, might not have a legal background, but also help make laws. Okay, so any other surprises? We have students weren't aware of how much math nursing professionals use in their everyday work, and just how many current job openings there are in fields like construction. Yes, so as those surprises are coming into the chat, I just want to mention some next steps for you. If you have ideas, interests, questions about what you might do with your future, now is the time to start asking those questions. And there are all sorts of experts who you know. There are your family members, your teachers, your neighbors who are all working in jobs that you can ask them about those jobs. There are also people like school counselors who have a lot of access to occupational information and can share some answers to questions you might have. So now's the time to start asking those questions, getting that information, and then you can explore things. There's some resources online. We can also share via email with your teachers after, where if there's an occupation you're interested in that's not listed here, there are places you can go on the Vermont Department of Labor website to find out about nearly 600 occupations in Vermont and even more nationally to find out about those occupations. So ask lots of questions. Think about yourself, what your interests are, what skills you already have, how you can build skills, and then you can pick courses in high school that might help you along those paths of interests you have. So a big thank you to everyone at VSAC who hosted this event, all of our panelists, Matt for making economics fun for us, and everyone who helped in the chat, teachers for bringing your students here, and students for being so engaged and asking such great questions. We appreciate all of you. Seeing lots of excitement there on the classroom video monitors. So thank you, everyone.